I was sitting here thinking about those days when life just feels a bit heavy and you're not sure how much more you can take. My guest, Jay Setchell, has been through things that most of us could not even imagine. He's still here and he's moving forward. We're going to have a chat with Jay about where the inner strength really comes from when things get tough. Welcome back to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Dahya, and I'm really looking forward to speaking with Jay today. We're talking about resilience, not the kind that you read in the textbook. We're talking about the kind is forged in the middle of 73 surgeries, paralysis, and moments where life feels like it was completely unfair. It's about finding purpose when you have every reason to walk away. Jay Setchell is a Marine Corps veteran, serial entrepreneur, inventor, author, and motivational speaker. Through his platform, Never Quit Trying, Jay shares a message of resilience, purpose, faith, and personal responsibility. His mission is to help people break free from limitations, embrace their journey, and create a life of meaning. Jay is the author of Strength Within You. It's Always Too Soon to Quit, a memoir that explores his extraordinary life journey from growing up in a family on a farm to serving in the Marine Corps and facing serious physical and emotional hardship after life-changing accidents. The book focuses on the inner strength, preparation, mindset, courage, and the belief that no matter what someone is facing, it is always too soon to quit. His life story includes multiple near-death experiences, 73 surgeries, paralysis, faith, hope, prayer. He has also spoken openly about the discipline of Marine Corps and how adversity shaped his belief and that people have more strength inside them than they often realize. Jay, it's an honor to have you here. Welcome to the Champion Mindset Collective.
Hey, Anthony, great to connect finally here. It's good to hear your voice.
Yeah, likewise. It's been a while in the making, but we're here. So
Well, I better be good here. You gave me a heck of an introduction, so
yeah.
I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can own up to that.
Well, let's see how we go. Jay, before we go into a whole lot of questions, I'd love for you to share your journey in life from childhood to now. How did you get here?
How did I get here? Wow. I'm just going to make it real short. It's just through never quitting, through always going on, always keep stepping forward, always taking those small steps. You know, I realized many, many, many years ago that because I'm 76 going on 77, and I know that if you take small steps and you have to correct or you start to fall, it's easy to correct or it's easy to regain balance. But if you've taken a great big step and you hit something slippery, you fall down. And I just think that that's what's gotten me through life is it's just stick-to-itiveness. It's never quit. It's always too soon to quit because everybody that I know, or just about everybody I know, has had something that they could have achieved, or most people could. They could achieve something if they just hadn't quit, if they just kept going that little bit further. You know, I talked to a gentleman the other day and I said, it's like climbing a mountain or climbing a hill, just a regular hill. If you just take two, you're tired from climbing the hill, but if you would have taken 2 more steps, you'd have been on top of the hill, but you didn't do it. So, you turn around and go down, it's like, so,
Yeah.
But I just think that's it. Just, responsibility, grit, determination, perseverance, attitude. There's all those words they're very common, but I don't think people hear them enough.
Yeah.
I don't think they hear them enough. It's just life's tough and you got to suck it up. You got to move through it. You got to hang on and just keep going and going and going.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you shared there. We're actually closer than what we think. When we're in that moment to giving up, we're actually, like you said, we could be 2 steps away from whatever that you're trying to do. And we also, as human beings, we tend to live in the gap more than we do in the gain. And as you were saying, if you look at climbing the mountain, you look back and you go, look how far I've actually made it. And I've only got a little bit more to go. And like life is a journey and there is definitely lots of challenges and speed bumps and twists and turns, but isn't that the point of life that's what you make it. I mean, the meaning of life, I remember the Monty Python movies where they said, what is the meaning of life? Well, it's like, that's what you make it.
That's a classic.
That's a classic. It's like life is what you make it. Yeah.
Monty
Yeah,
Python's out. And I wanna just say, it's not just that last couple of steps, it's also stepping out and starting,
yeah.
because a lot of people don't start, and kind of a start and a finish. I've got kind of a unique thing. I thought about this, oh my gosh, I don't know, maybe 50 years ago, but can you imagine a sculptor working on the perfect bust? I mean, they've worked for 1,000 hours, and now there's one little digit right on their nose, and they gotta get it off, and if he gets it off right, it's perfect. So he gets up and he sets his whatever the tool's called, a chisel of some sort, I suppose, and he takes his mallet and he just thinks it's gonna come off, so he whacks it, and it doesn't move, and he whacks it, and he whacks it, and he whacks it, and he does it maybe 1,000 times, and on the 1,001st hit, it comes off, and it's absolutely perfect. It's the perfect statue. Now, thinking back from starting through finishing, was it the first hit that jarred it just a slight bit loose, or was it the last one that took it off?
Mm, mm. And,
It's a combination.
yeah, and many entrepreneurs and inventors like Thomas Edison, I mean, I think was it 10,000, like, different failures before he actually nailed the light bulb?
Yeah, yeah, I think it was 1,000. He said when he
10,000.
finally invented it, whatever the number was, he says, "Well, I didn't fail 1,000 times. I found 1,000 ways it didn't work."
Exactly.
You know? And
Yeah,
that's the way to look at it. It's like,
yeah.
you know what? This just isn't it. So I gotta try a little bit, and you keep working at it, and and he was the most prolific inventor in the 20th century
Mm,
in the world.
mm,
So
yeah.
it's like, it's pretty crazy. So
So there's some stories about him like sitting at a chair going into an alpha brainwave state where he's almost drifting off, and then he would have something in his hand, and as it fell, as he had the idea when he woke up, he would write things down, and so he's getting that inspiration from God, universe, whatever you want to call it. But he was getting that inspiration, and as he was getting
right,
that, he was writing it down. Now, Jay,
right.
you were raised on a working farm. And we often talk about how our early days set the foundation. What did life teach you about discipline and earning what matters?
Well, first of all, everything matters. And they say your formative years are from birth to like 17. So I was raised by the time, I mean, before I was 5, I was doing it, but not as a regular little job, so to speak. But by the time I was 5, I mean, I was going down in the basement and whipping up warm milk with powdered or warm water and powdered milk into a 10 quart bucket, with a nipple pail to feed the calves like they do all over, and collecting eggs. We had about 1,000 chickens, and, collecting the eggs and separating them from brown to white. I'm 5 years old. I can figure that out. This is brown and this is white. And double yolkers, the great big ones, he set them over here. And I'd put them into cases. If they were real dirty, you'd wash them off. And it didn't take a lot, but it's a fact of responsibility. It's the discipline to do it. It's the consistency and continuing to do it, the perseverance that I think moved it through. And with all the cattle we raised, the crops we raised, just no difference in another country of the world that would do the same thing. I spoke to a gentleman out of Australia, and he was commenting how his uncle had a sheep farm. So it was very, very similar to what we had way on the west side. And I think the fortunate thing, a lot of it, Anthony, is you get to see the cycle of life.
Mm,
And that can be in nature or it can be in animals, because you see them when they're born, or you see them when they're younger and they're smaller, and you buy feeder cattle. You buy them at 150 or 180 pounds approximately, and you feed them out to go to slaughter. Well, but if it happens to be born there, you're like I did with the nipple bucket, you're feeding them, and then they get bigger, and you put them in the lot with the other cattle, and they grow up, and you send them off to slaughter. You don't think about it. It's just part of life. That's just part of, but crops, you plant them in the spring, a small seed becomes a 12 or 14-foot tall corn
mm,
stalk, and it's got 2 or 3 years of corn on it, and then you harvest it or you chop it up and put it in the silo for silage, chopped up corn for your cattle. So there's always something to do, and I think that's what impressed upon me the importance of time, because
mm.
by the time I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, I realized that time moved fast, and I mentioned it to my grandmother one day, and she said and I was like I said, 2nd or 3rd grade, I don't remember, and she said, "Well, I'm glad you realize it this at that age, Jay, at your young age, because when you get like I am, as old as I am," and she was probably like I am now in her 70s, you know, she says, "Time moves so much faster."
Mm.
And people don't look at it they look at it one way, but not the other way. I'd like to just throw this out real quick. About 5 weeks ago, I gave a talk to about 160 to 170 high school seniors at a big high school over here. Well, not giant, but a good size. And a lot of them were ROTC students, Reserve Officer Training Corps. Just it's a class they take, and the rest were just some seniors that came in. They're not all the seniors, but they wanted me to talk about perseverance. They wanted to talk about determination and so forth, which we did. We covered quite a few subjects, and I had like an hour and 5 minutes or something. But towards the end of the class, getting back to time, it really came out. It was just kind of a spur of the moment thing. How many of you seniors are sitting out here today? I want you to close your eyes and think back when you were in 8th grade. And now think about being a senior in high school and you're going to graduate. Okay. They're bigger, they're taller, they got cars, they may have a job, they got girlfriends, you can go on a date. You're becoming more of a person. You're going to be free to fly the world. When you're sitting there in 8th grade looking at these big seniors that get to drive cars instead of ride the bus like you are or whatever, how long or did you ever think you would ever make it? Did it seem like forever? Raise your hands. And everybody raised their hands. Everybody. And I said, okay, on it conversely, think about it right now. You're going to be they graduated last Friday. They graduated last Friday night. So 5 weeks ago, I said, in 4 or 5 weeks, you guys are going to be graduating high school. Now, look back right now at how long ago was 8th grade? How long ago was it you felt like you would never make it this far? And all of a sudden, it's like gone. The time
Mm.
is gone. And I said, if you can do that and think about it and like, holy cow kind of moment, raise your hand. And everybody raised their hands. And I said, and here's the sad thing. The next 20 years are going to go just as fast as the last 4 did.
Mm.
Because they do. You sit there now, and you're sitting back and you can think, how long ago was it you graduated high school? It's like, even if it's their 20th high school graduation, you go like a reunion or something. I've never been to one. I just have always been somewhere else in the world. But if you have that coming up 20 years or 25 years, it's like, gosh darn, I can't be that long. But it is.
Yeah. For me, I didn't graduate from school. I failed miserably twice.
Well,
And and
there's
then
a lot of people.
and I left at the age of 16. So that was back in 1988.
88. Okay.
1988 is when I left school, and I started working at the age of 16.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, my father-in-law dropped out of school and went into the Army or the National Guard when he was 14, and then he was done with that. He didn't have any other money left. He didn't know where his parents were, so he enlisted in the 82nd Airborne, or they transferred him. So he got out of the 82nd Airborne, and he was just 16 years old, then. And he didn't the unit that he was in the Airborne didn't do a whole lot of jumps, but he did qualify. There's an old saying out, Anthony, and I think you've heard it. It's like, hard times make hard men. Hard making men make good times. Good times make softer men. Softer men make easy times. Easy times make, and it goes back downhill till
Mm.
it's so bad that you got to get hard or you're not going to survive.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of it. But you've proven it. I don't believe that the answer is not in public school or private school to learn. It's nice to know some history, and you learn that as you get older. You pick up on that. You just do it. It's natural because now you can accept it. But you don't need to know a lot of the goofy things like putting out a fruit fly and then dissecting it under a microscope. It's like, okay, I've done that a lot of times in my life. I did okay in school, but I didn't do very good
Mm.
because I was bored. I
Mm.
had so much other stuff. When I got out of school got out at 3:45, and I started work at 4 o'clock at a small agriculture factory that made grain dryers. and pickup reels for combines for the wheat fields and the oats and stuff, and the barley and all that kind of stuff. And I worked from 4 till 12:30 every night. I get home about 1 in the morning, and I get back up at 5:30 to help my dad with the chores, because if I didn't help him with his chores and I do my chores, he wouldn't help do my chores at night, or if he did, he would charge me, because everything has time, everything has money, everything is time is money and money is time, and it's a
mm.
responsibility. So I never thought about it. It was just like you said. I mean, I'd look out the window and wonder, oh my gosh, I could be doing this instead of sitting here being bored to death learning about adjectives and all that.
Yeah. For me, it was, yeah, I was bored and I wasn't very good at learning some of the things that they were teaching us. And for me, it was like, I'm just going to go and start working. And everything I've achieved through believing in myself and backing myself. No qualifications, just going, I can do that. I'm going to do that. And
It
just
is.
doing it.
It's up here. It's up
Yeah.
here. If
Yeah.
there's a will, there's a way. If you believe you can do it and you got the faith you can do it, or you believe you can do it, you can do it. You just got to keep working at it, and it'll be
Yeah.
good. I would like to say something about school, though, that I did learn, if I may. Uh,
Mm,
when I was a sophomore, I thought, well, I need to take algebra. I don't know why, but I need to try it. So I knew that I wasn't going to like it. I could tell. I knew that the day I walked into class. But my first semester, I got a D, I think. I mean, I just barely made it. And I thought, oh my gosh, second semester is going to be terrible. And it was. But make a long story short, the end of the semester came around, last final comes up, and I fail it. I fail it bigger than crap. I know I got to repeat the second semester of algebra next year, which scared me because well, it didn't scare me, but I just, oh man, I don't want to do this. And so
mm,
on the way out the class, door, Mr. Malcolm was my teacher, and he said, "Jay, come here a minute, will you please?" And so I went over and he says, "Listen," he said, "today it's Tuesday." It was a Tuesday. He said, "Tomorrow I'll be here all day working on papers and setting up the report cards and stuff. And on Thursday is the finals, or you guys are going to come back for half a day and pick up your cards in the different classes. And I'd like to invite you back to try taking the final one more time. Just come back and try it." And I said, "Okay, yes, sir." So, and I was busy that next day, and I don't know how I got out of it, but I was able to get in there, and I got in early afternoon, so because I had to be to work at 4 anyhow, but I wanted to be done with it, and so I did it, and I failed it. Let's just cut to the chase. I failed it. He turned to me, he said, "Listen," he said, I invited 7 people." I can't hold my other hand up. It doesn't work. This hand works kinda. But I invited 7 people back to do what you just did. Give them another chance to try taking it. And you failed it, Jay. But more important than straight A's, more important than passing really good and looking great is trying. And
mm,
you are a trier. And I'm aware of what you do at night. I'm aware that you put in 40 some hours a week at a job during the night. You
mm,
make as much as most of all the high school teachers. You make more than some of them. You make more than quite a few of them between your ag projects and your cattle and your hogs and your work at nighttime, you know, and, but anyhow, he just said, "Straight A's never got anybody rich, but trying does." And he said, "You're a trier, and you're the only one that showed back up.
yeah.
I'm gonna give you a D minus and pass you." And I said, "Hallelujah, thank you." But I don't think it had any effect on me. That's the best lesson I got out of school. But I don't think I thought about it till I was in my 40s or 50s, because I always did try.
And yeah, I agree with you. At least when you're trying, you're applying yourself. Whereas if you just take it for granted that you're getting straight A's when you leave school, there was a whole lot of people at school that here we had forms back in my day, so they got to like the last grade before they left school and they passed. But when they left school, they couldn't even get a job, right? And whereas I just went straight into a job, and that to me, just doing that work, the hard work, actually instilled that work ethic within me and the discipline to be able to do things.
Well, you kept coming over problems. You kept overcoming
Yeah.
detours and setbacks, and people learned very, very quickly. You can adapt very,
Mm,
very quickly to that resilience because that's what you had to do.
yeah.
And and you go through enough of it, Anthony, you look back and you think, "Well, that's nothing. That's nothing." But, there's an old story where it says, "A man that has fallen and gotten back up is stronger than a man that's never fallen." And that's much like you're saying. People can get straight A's, they get out of school, or they go to college, they do okay, or mom and dad or pay for it, whatever. And to a degree today means nothing in
mm,
reality. Now, there's certain specialties and certain scientific paranormal paranormal items, probably it works okay, but make sure it's a good institution, but there's
mm,
not most of it. Where are the people that take care of your air conditioning and your heaters and your furnaces and, your electrical and your plumbing and all that? Everybody looked down on them for so long, but you need it.
mm.
I don't
Yeah,
need I when I was with GTE, I did quite a bit of hiring, and I had certain questions I asked, but one of the guys that came in I hired had a doctorate degree in Russian theology, and I said, "Why did you get blah, blah, blah." He said, "Well, it just sounded interesting at the time." I said, "Well, what have you been doing for the last 3 or 4 years?" He said, "Driving a potato chip truck, delivering potato chips to bars and restaurants and grocery stores." And I'm going, 8, 9, 10 years of education just gone. I mean, but yeah. Anyhow,
yeah, yeah. Jay, can you take us back to the November 1969 when you had that accident? What happened, and how did that moment start to shape you as a man that you became?
Anthony, I really believe I was already shaped largely to what I
Mm,
was going to become.
mhm,
I believe I was shaped from a very early age on the farm. And the Marine Corps is very strict, very regimented, very, very regimented. And yeah, I think I think the biggest thing they did was reinstill the values that I had learned: patriotism, hard work, responsibility, never give up, seek out, not only do the job, do better than they expect you to do, all of that stuff. I had that put in me when I was a child, all the way through my teen until I went in the Marine Corps. I enlisted when I was 17 and entered boot camp when I was 18. But I think it was there. So on the night of November 12th, 1969, I stopped by another guy's house. His name was Stitz, and he worked on my criminal intelligence team. We were covert ops. And I got to the house and nobody was at the front door. The front door was open, but the screen door was closed. And then they had a little dog inside. I went ahead and went on in the house because they told me, "Hey, whenever you show up, just come on in." But I figured they must be out back because it's very, very small little apartments on a non-commissioned officer in the Marine Corps back in those days. They were tiny, maybe 400 square feet, maybe
mhm,
350, but I heard a woman scream, and it was to the right as I went out the back, and so I sprinted down to the end, and as I went around the corner, one of the people that he had been the group of people that he had been undercover following found out about him somehow and found where he lived somehow, and they were beating him, and they'd cut his head open pretty good from about the center of the skull down. His ear was hanging off and down into the neck. They missed his jugular, but he was bleeding bad. His wife was screaming. They'd been married 6 months. She'd only been out there 4 months. And make a long story short, I got him in my car. Picked him up and did the military carry, got him in the car. I put her in the middle, and I'd had her get a towel to do a pressure
pressure.
against the wound. Yeah, pressure, can't think what I wanna call it. But I had her put her arm around his neck and his head on the right side because that wasn't injured. I mean, they'd been hitting him, but it wasn't sliced open. And let's get the bleeding stopped because I didn't know. He could have bled out really quick. He was bleeding a lot. My car, well, it was not good. And on the way to the hospital, I went to the military hospital, the Naval Hospital at Camp Pendleton on Marine Base, because it's the only one I knew. Maybe there was one closer, but I don't think so, and it wasn't that far. And on the way there, it was now dark, and a semi had pulled out of an orange packing plant down alongside the road and crossed the road. Well, his drivers were out in the middle of the road, and he was fully loaded, no side lights, no reflectors, everything was dirty, everything was covered, it was like looking at a dark tree in the middle of a black night, you couldn't
Mm,
see anything, and we had several people behind us, and the guy directly behind me was one of the gentlemen that later on made a statement, was another Marine, he was a full bird colonel, and he said, "If he hadn't hit him, we would have."
mm,
And they said I was on my brakes for about 50 feet, but I was in a 1966 Galaxy 500 XL that was kinda like a big boat. It was 17 feet, 4 inches long, and when we hit that semi, it went like that, and it crunched to under 10 feet, and it started to burn. So, 3 other Marines coming the other direction didn't know we were Marines. They didn't know what was going on. They could see a silhouette up ahead. And make a long story short, they stopped and they worked and worked and worked and worked and worked to pull us out. And I just visited the last living Marine that helped pull us out. And last week, a week ago, Monday, he's not doing real well. His dementia's setting in. He didn't hardly recognize me at first. And then that's all he would talk about. And I cried. I mean, it made me cry. He cried. And, Linda ended up being in a coma for 18 months, the lady,
wow.
and dying, passing away. And then Roy, he was burned over about 60% of his body and didn't get broken up as bad. And he passed away from a heart attack a year ago, this coming up month in June. And we had stayed in touch. And I got some third-degree burns, but I was crushed real badly. And Walter related how he pulled the dug my face out of the steering wheel, and, that's before airbags and all that stuff. But, I I I had a real bad out-of-body death experience. I was in a coma for a month. They put me back in a coma for another couple of weeks, but and I don't remember any of it. I don't remember any pain, but I do remember being out of my body, being very violent. Everything was violent. It just typical Marine Corps type stuff, it's like, and the 3 doctors that were working on me, Anthony started walking away. And I'm, like, screaming. They said, "Hey, there's nothing we can do." I mean, my left foot was broken. The bottom of my leg was snapped so bad, my left foot was turned backwards. My left jaw was sticking out the side of my face. My skull was crushed in. I had burns on my head. I had burns in here they fixed up. My right leg is melted pretty bad. Femurs were broken, ribs, lots of broken ribs, punctured lungs. The list goes on, hips, knees, whatever. And so they had just given up, and there was another doctor entered the room, and his name was Doctor Gray. He had navy whites on, and whether they called him because of all my jaw damage and facial da I don't know why. But he came in and he started looking and looking and looking, and finally he took a scalpel and he cut a tracheotomy and then barely pushed on my lungs a little bit because the blood started to come out and spurt
Mm,
out, kinda like a whale when you're flying over in a helicopter, you look down, a whale spurting up on you,
mm,
and but when he pushed on me, the blood came out a lot, and all that time, I was up in the ceiling, my back against the ceiling, screaming, "Don't leave me, don't let me go. No, I'm alive. Help me, help me, help me," because I felt like I was alive, but what they determined, from what I was told a long time later, is basically that I had drowned in my own blood. And plus there was so much blood and pressure into this area all over that the heart wouldn't beat. It was held like that. So there was no heartbeat. There was no blood pressure. There was nothing. It was done. So had it been another 5 minutes, I wouldn't have been here.
mm.
So it was like God stepped in and helped that man. You know. So anyhow, but
Yeah. Wow. I can't even imagine.
I don't like thinking about it. I really don't. I was like,
Yeah.
and one thing I wanna mention that one of the things that Walter told me that they all 3 of them had worked on us, and all 3 of them had pulled us out of the car, and all 3 of them had when the ambulances and stuff finally got there, they realized that they had skin hanging on their hands and on their arms, and they knew they had been burned a little bit. They could feel a little bit of pain, but they didn't know how bad it was, but they could tell by the skin something was not good. Well, when they were getting cleaned off, it wasn't their skin. When he told me that, it made me cry. It was our skin from
Wow.
pulling on us. Like if I grab you by your shoulders and pull
Yeah.
you as hard like I pull your skin right off of you just to get
Wow.
you out.
Wow.
That when he told me that, he told me that 10, 11 years ago when we first reconnected after 48 years. And 47 years, and man, I cried hard. It just really got me. It really got to me.
After that situation, what was your mental state like?
I spent long enough in the coma, Anthony, that I recall little things. I remember my if you run the tongue or your audience runs their tongue over the roof of their mouth, it's got those little ridges in it. Okay, I've got a scar about that wide, about a half inch wide, that goes all the way through. My whole upper palate was busted open, and I could stick my tongue up into my sinus passage. So, think about that. So
Mm,
I couldn't talk, I was unconscious, but I could hear voices, and, the first voice I remember ever hearing was my mother's, or that I recognized. Everything else is just a jumble of corpsmen and doctors and whoever, and I remember a tear coming out of my left eye, and when it went down my cheek, it felt like somebody just put out a big match and just drug it. It was hot. It was hot, but she couldn't recognize me. She didn't my jaws were still messed up. I was so bad they hadn't tried to refracture them and set them and put them back in place. So, you know, they did a pretty good job. I mean, considering, what it is. And I had a little notebook. One of the first things I ever wrote, she held it for me. Well, she had a little notebook. It's like about 2 inches high and 4 or 5 inches wide, and I scribbled in it. It's in my book, and I scribbled in it. It says, "Am I gonna live?" But it says, "Am I gonna li" so it's scrawled out pretty bad. If I didn't say what it said, once you read what it says, you can read the letters. But, my mental state was just I think it was probably just the fact that they had me on medications, drugged up, whatever, but I just knew it was gonna take a long time.
mm,
I knew that healing was gonna take a long time. I hadn't died. I'd been through the worst, and now that doesn't mean that I can't die. I can't get an infection and all that other. I understand that. But I truly do not remember thinking it's kind of what there's an old saying, and this is a good spot for saying it. Sweat dries, blood clots, and broken bones heal. Suck it up. And being a Marine, we are all taught, hey, shit's going to happen. Live with it. Deal with it. Move forward. It doesn't matter. Whether you're shot, you better help him because he's got shot 3 times. You got to drag him. You've got to keep moving. So, in essence, don't ever remember being down. I don't ever remember being negative. I really don't. I mean, I'm not saying I wasn't, but I don't think I was. I was always looking forward to that next day, to that
yeah.
that little bit of healing, because like my 3rd-degree burns, I cut the skin off. I cut the skin off myself and used a scalpel and scissors and I soaked it in betadine soaks and kinda like iodine, and I did all that myself because busy hands, busy mind. Keep doing something, but my jaws were wired together for the better part of 5 months, and then they took the lower wires off and found out that my lower jaw was still they could still move it a bit, so they had to come back in and
Wired
redo
up.
my bottom jaw again. So
Mm,
I said, "Thanks, guys." I had to tell you, my worst 3rd-degree burn was healing pretty good. I got it all cut off, and it became I've got a picture somewhere. I didn't put it in the book. It's just a big red raw looking piece of meat, and it healed slowly for another 2.5 months, roughly 3 months, and then they were gonna do a skin graft, take some skin off up above my upper thigh and put it on the spot that was about, oh, I don't know, about this big and, about 2.5 by 4 inches, and when they got me back the next day, they came in and where they take the skin from hurts worse than where they put it, because your nerves are dead where they sew it on, you don't really know it. And when they got I had 2 pieces of skin gone, and I'm thinking, "I know it didn't take 2 pieces, you only used 1 on it. What happened to the other one?" And this Doctor Lambert says, "Well, honestly, we dropped one." And I
no,
said, "So that gets back to suck it up, you know? That you're never gonna recover it. They didn't mean to do it. It'll heal over time, and now for years it's been okay." So you can see where they cut it off, it's very plain to see, but I think it was just every day was another day towards getting better. It's like
mm,
if you wanna do 50 push-ups and you start out doing 5, and next week you do 7, and the next week you do 8, and the next week you do 10, and so on and so forth, and you eventually work your way up to 50 push-ups. It's just It's consistency, discipline, finding I don't know. You had to have some humor, make light of some things, make funny. I had a guy to my right. I was in there about in ward 30A. It was an orthopedic surgery ward. I was in there about 6 or 7 weeks. I still had my tracheotomy. I was still breathing out of my tracheotomy, and he got over to my bed in his wheelchair and he gave me like 40 or 50 bucks. And I said, "Well, what's this for?" And he says, "Well, honestly, you were in such bad shape when you came in a bunch of us took bets how long you'd live, and you're still here." I said and of course, I told him with my jaws wired, you know, "You don't know how bad I was," it's like because my lips were all ripped in half and stuff, but, they didn't see how bad I was to begin with. I was in good shape by then, so,
Mm. Yeah,
the mindset just is, "I can do this," because that's what's pounded into us.
yeah,
That's what I was raised with.
yeah. And when your body was failing and you were going through those 73 surgeries, what role did hope and faith and prayer play to keeping you from slipping away into the darkness?
A bunch of surgeries obviously happened in the Marine Corps, but I had other surgeries later. After the second time I died, they had to pretty much reattach my arm and my deltoid muscle. I had broken ribs again, more surgeries. From the broken neck, I didn't have a surgery. But later in life, from about the time I was about 36 or 38, I started having more surgeries. And by the time I was 41, they retired me, from GTE in the Yellow Pages because I was a risk. I was a fall risk, my paralysis was getting a little better. I'd had so many surgeries, but after that, I had about 20 surgeries from, let's see, 1990, March of '90 for about the next 15 years. I had about 20 and one of the first ones was 15 hours. They fused my whole neck with bone from my left pelvis, and that's a terrible thing what happened that. I mean, people don't realize it's bad enough the surgery and the length of surgery, but it's getting home. I was home about 6 weeks later, and I was going to the restroom on leg braces and crutches, and I had this Halo cat, a Philadelphia collar holding my chin up. And as I got next to my dresser going into my bedroom, it's a captain's dresser, kind of a tall dresser, and all of a sudden, snap, pop, oh my it sounded like a firecracker went off, and I thought, "Oh my god," and the pain, and I dropped my left crutch, fell out, and I caught my left arm, thank God my arm was working well enough, and my right crutch stayed under my arm, but I caught it, and my wife heard it in the kitchen. She come running in. Well, what happened was the front part of your pelvis is rounded, okay? And that's called the iliac crest. And the iliac crest, they had taken so much bone out of my pelvis to repair my neck and fuse it that they didn't make enough, they didn't judge it well enough for me to drag my right leg along that was paralyzed. And the torque broke that iliac crest off, and it snapped right through. It came through my skin, came through my sweatpants, and I got a bone sticking out like just like walking along with a bone. And I couldn't walk, I couldn't move, and I had to go to the bathroom, so I had my wife got down on her knees and took my foot, and I asked her, "Just set it ahead, like, as far as you can reach it." And when she did that, with everything I had, I drug my right leg. We did that till I got to the toilet. And then I sat down the toilet, and then it came out worse. She called 911, came back, and I said, "I'm not gonna be on the toilet when 911 gets here. I don't care what, blood, bones, whatever." And so she helped me get up. I got up, and I got to the bed, and that's about when they showed up, and they thought, "Holy crap." There was blood because I was the blood, the bone sticking straight up out of there. But, so sometimes it's after the surgery that everybody hails as a success. So, but to answer your question more in depth, it was really after I broke my neck, Anthony, that when I was laying there, the doctor, it was 4 or 5 days after I broke my neck, I don't recall, and my wife was down in front of me, I was in a circle bed, and I had bolts in my skull here. You can see the scars from the halo cast later, but I had bolts, a different kind of traction, and she said, "There's a man here I met in the waiting room whose son is in the hospital, and he would like to offer you a prayer. If that's okay, just blink your eyes." Well, I'm not stupid, and so I blinked my eyes, and and I don't remember what he prayed, but, that the Lord would touch me and that I could move forward and I would be able to, persevere and so on and so forth and whatever he said. And as a matter of fact, he went to a large church of about 5,000 people. And every Sunday, well, for months, every Sunday for months, he went to church to all three services and asked for prayer for me from everybody there that was up, and everybody stood and they all prayed. And my mom did that. And I prayed for, I said my own prayers too. But it was the faith. I'm an overachiever. I'm an overdoer. I'm going to push for, I don't care. So during the week, if the therapist, now I'm in the hospital, let's say 4 months, and he says, lift your left arm 6 times. I raise it 8. And then he says, no, no, I said 6. So I raise it 9. He says, okay, smarty, raise it 10. So I'll raise it 12, always like that. But my point is that during the week, I could see incremental improvement come along over different parts of my body at different times. But it was on Sundays when all that prayer was being lifted up to the Lord that I got more back. I got more back. And
Mm.
since then, my faith will be undeterred. My faith will be undeterred. And my mother came about that time, my mom and dad, about 4 months after the accident, 2 months, and my left arm was starting to work, not great, but it was working. And she asked me something about everything okay. And I said, and yeah, everything's good. I mean, things are coming along, and I mean, you're not real happy to be sitting there with, a halo cast bullet in your skull and you're paralyzed and everybody's got to do everything for you. But I did say, I said, "Why me, mom? Why me?" And I didn't mean why me badly, and I didn't mean woe is me, but why me? I mean, I should have been ground up with the feeding auger when I was 17. I die in the Marine Corps when I was 19. I get killed by a drunk driver when I'm 23. Now I'm 31. I mean, how many more of these do I have to look forward to? If I live to be 80, is this going to happen 5 more times or 6 or 7 more times? Well, they didn't. Well, they kind of did. I mean, from MRSA staff and COVID Delta and an accident 2 years ago, but I didn't get hurt in that accident. They couldn't believe it. Totaled the van out. But it was the surgeries that took it out of me. It's getting older that's hurting me bad. That's what's doing it. Regressing. I'm going backwards because Anthony, I was able to walk out of there not well, but I walked out for about 17, 18 years. I walked with leg brace or leg braces, crutches, or a cane. Fell down a lot. I fell down a lot. I mean, more than I ever want to admit. But then I had more brainstem surgeries, which put me into a thing, and that made me go on a walker. And I was on a walker for about 18 years. Now I've been in a power wheelchair for the last almost 8 years. It's just getting worse, and I just got back from a trip, and I could tell from a trip that I made like that about 3 years ago, I've gotten weaker. I can tell it, so I can only imagine what it's gonna be.
Mm.
But that's the faith. You gotta have faith, and I don't mean hope. Hope is a good thing. People say, hope, faith, and or hope, love, hope, and something else are the 3 greatest things. No, hope is good. It's good to have hope for something, but if you have total faith in it,
Faith.
I mean 100% faith, and you truly believe, you will achieve. And I think achieve and believe kinda go together because they rhyme.
Mm. Mm.
Just like I think God kinda put it that way. Hope kinda doesn't go with anything, but you can hope. I hope I win the lottery, but I know I'm not going to because 'cause I'm not gonna buy a ticket,
Well,
you know?
it's not a certainty, is it? Whereas faith and believing is actually a certainty
Yes,
without so, it's the certainty without logic that it's going to happen.
it's in here.
It's in there. Yeah, yeah. And it's
It's
in
in there.
here. It's in
I was
here
just
as
gonna
well.
I was just gonna
Yeah,
say, and it's in your heart.
yeah.
It's like whatever it is, when you start out on something, if you I had a part of a business I added on to another business that was very successful many years ago, and and it sounded good, it checked out pretty decent and all that, and I hoped it would do this, and I thought I had the right people in place and all this, but it just wasn't doing it. It
Mm.
just wasn't doing it, and I shut it down about 8 months later. I sold the equipment and the money we had made, the money I sold the equipment for, I didn't really lose anything, but I gained a lot of experience. And one of the things of an experience I learned is don't just hope and don't bite off something that you really don't have a lot of faith in, knowledge about, believe that is going to make it. Just because somebody else says, I want it, doesn't mean they're going to buy it or they're going to take it. And I think that was a good example for me corporately to understand it because I mean, it was $100,000 purchase 25, 30 years ago, so but I got out of it okay. But I didn't really believe in it. I wanted to believe in it because of other people and the excitement people can get excited about stuff, but it just wasn't there.
Yeah. Wow. What a journey you've been on. Now, you've got a powerful phrase that you talk about, which says, if it's to be, it's up to me. What does that actually mean to you when life is at its hardest?
I think that's when it comes into play the most. When it says it's hard, it's only up to you. It isn't up I can't call Anthony and ask you for, "Hey, can you come over here and help me?" Or, "Can you come over and do it?" You can't. And I think that if it is to be, it is up to me is kind of I used it with one of my sons many, many years ago. He was getting in trouble and this and that, and he had not bad trouble, but he was getting in trouble, and he had his driver's license test coming up here in the next 6, 8 weeks. And I said, "Aaron, you know you're gonna want your license. You're gonna have to take a vision test, you're gonna have to take a written test, and you're gonna have to drive the car. I can't do it for you.
Mm,
It won't work.
yeah,
You gotta do it. You have to do it. If it is to be, it is up to me."
yeah.
But I just think that the if it is to be, it is up to me. Went clear back to when I was feeding my calves because my dad wasn't gonna do it. My little sister wasn't gonna do it. She's like 1.5, and I'm 5, 5.5. So to make sure the calves get fed and they get their protein, they get their nutrients, it's up to me to do it. So if it is to be, it is up to me. And they're
Yeah.
just 10 simple words, and it can change your outlook because if you say it enough and you understand it, then you know that it's up to you to learn about it. Just what you did when you dropped out of school. You had to learn what you were going to do. You had to believe it. You had to keep doing it. You had to fail, learn, move forward. So at that time, Anthony could have been saying, if it is to me, it's up to me.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, you probably were just in a different way.
Yeah, and also the all the redundancies I've been through, the restructures, I've had to just go, if it's up to the same mindset of, if this is gonna happen, it's up to me to do it. No one else is
Yeah.
coming to save me. How do you keep yourself accountable?
By always I guess accountability is like responsibility. It's just like it's always holding yourself to the standard that you're going to provide a service or a product or advice that's best for that person. And if you do that, then you've done your job and more because you've tried harder. I don't want to just provide. It's like here recently, I shut a business down. We were building homes about 2.5 years ago. I closed it. And I didn't want to just build a satisfactory product. I wanted to build the best. It had to be the Marine Corps best. It had to
Mm,
be the best. I wanted to build it above their expectations. And so when you do that, you know you're holding yourself accountable. And if you see something on the floor over here that shouldn't be there, pick it up. If you see something in the yard that shouldn't be there, a rock, I don't know. I'm just pick it up. Take the time. If it is to be, it's up to me. I'm not going to wait for somebody else to come along and pick it up. Maybe they won't do it. But when these people show up, I want them to go, wow, my gosh. And so that brings you back to the accountability factor. And that makes you feel good because you are accountable. And if I don't do it, no matter who you try to trust and you believe and you train, you almost always, at some point, there's an old saying, expect but inspect, trust but verify. That's what I do to myself. I can do something, I can do it good, I can do it better than I thought, but I'm still going to go back and check it over later.
mm,
After I've got a different I've looked at something else, go back because a lot of times you've done certain things in your life, Anthony, too, that you just can't quite get it. Step away from it for half an hour, go have a cup of coffee or go do something else, and then come back and you go, "Oh, well, there's the answer." It's like putting a puzzle together. You can't
mm,
find the damn piece of puzzle, and then,
yeah,
"Oh, it's right here."
yeah, exactly. And Einstein said it well, where the same thought that created the problem can't solve the problem. but also sometimes you do need to pause and step back, zoom out a bit, and go, okay, now I see. It's coming to that awareness and the realization that, and also we're taught to always look on the outside of things, but I feel that we've got to go internal to us, into ourselves, and actually, and as you said before, go and inspect what's going on inside of you, because that's only going to be a reflection on the outside.
Sure.
So yeah,
Y When you mention about stepping back, it's kinda like I've seen people that when they have an office at their house or they're in a business, if they're in a business, they don't have as much option. But if your office is facing a wall, it tends to limit your vision. I've got windows here, I look out, I see the deer walking by, I see the trees blowing in the wind. It gives you a different perspective, which is what you're talking about, is a
yeah,
perspective by
and
walking away and taking a little bit of a break from it. Just
yeah,
it doesn't have to be a long one, it can be 5 minutes. As you get older, and you may be there, I don't know, but when you go from one room to another room and you're gonna do something, you think, "What was it I was gonna do?" And if you walk back through the doorway, turn around and go back into the bathroom or your bedroom or something, and you walk back, I know what it was now.
yeah,
It's like it's like
yeah,
by magic. It's like, "Bing."
yeah. I've had the odd moment like that. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Jay, what would you say to those who feel that they've been dealt a bad hand and that it's not their responsibility anymore?
That To me, that's a hard one to say without being pretty hard, because I think I've been dealt some pretty shitty hands, like a lot of times, a lot, 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 times. So when somebody has that bad hand dealt to them once or twice or 3 or 4, I get over it, get up, and move forward. It's yes, it's there, and yes, you thought today's a holiday, so to speak, maybe, and you wanted a perfect picnic and you wanted it to be 72 degrees or 75 and the sun to be out and the birds to be chirping. But instead, you got thunder and lightning and a rainstorm. So what? Tomorrow it's going to be nice. Just get through it, move through it. If you take small steps while you're going through it, you know, that gets back to what we talked about earlier. Take small steps and that way if you falter in that bad hand trying to get out of it, whatever it is, and I think of a bad hand more as physical. I think of a bad hand as something like I made with the video production company that I did. Okay. I feel a bad hand with an investment that I've made where you lose $100,000. But I'm alive. I'm alive. And I don't know that people, and my wife gets upset with me when I say it, I don't know that people really have a really sincere, true appreciation for life until they've been dead or near dead or thinking they're going to die. I think, and I'm not saying you can't, but I'm just saying that really emphasizes it. And in my position, I should have died from MRSA staph. I should have. COVID Delta, they sent my wife home to make funeral arrangements. They said that was on a Monday. They said he won't make it to the weekend. And then I spent 5 months in 4 hospitals, you know, but I beat it because I wasn't going to quit. That was up to me. That was a bad hand. The kids brought it home from daycare, but we can look at different bad hands, whether you're raised in a country that doesn't have the resources. I had a gentleman, we finally got through the podcast this morning. He's from Nigeria. And you know what? Those people, he was 21 years old. He's been trying, he's been working at it, he's been to a school for it, and he's working at it. Now, I have a little hard time with the dialect, and I've done 2 or 3 with people from there, but you know what? They're trying. They're trying just like you are, and if somebody doesn't give them a break, if somebody doesn't help them and lay it straight out on the line like we are here, then you just gotta do it. You
Mm,
can't sit back and feel sorry for yourself because nobody's gonna come to your rescue. They're most people don't want your problem, and as a matter of fact, they're glad it's yours because they don't want it. So, if you look at it like that, but this young man, but they have real bad connection problems, internet and even electricity, but internet in particular. So we went through 4 times, and even this one was pretty good, but it still broke up towards the end. And he's so, he sends something to me and he'll say, like, he'll type out to me like, "I'm so sorry, don't be angry, please." How can I be angry?" And I told him that. I said, that's it's technology. It's the way it is." It's like, not a big thing. We're getting through it.
Yeah,
So
I had this same thing last night. I was talking to a lady on an interview in Dubai, and she was on a Windows laptop, and I know that Riverside on Windows is not very good. And I said to her, I said, "Switch to your phone." We switched to the phone. It was perfect. No
perfect.
problems at all. But it was just like being calm and being able to go, "It's okay, don't worry. We're just going to switch to your phone and let's try there." And we did it, and it worked fine. And it took a
Sure.
little while to upload, but I wasn't upset about it or anything like that. And just what you were saying before is that, get over it. My singing teacher would put on a disc and he would make me sing and he would walk out the room and he would come back and he would say, "That was crap." And I was like, "Yep." And he says, and I'd beat myself up and he'd say, "Anthony, get over it, build a bridge and get over it, build a bridge and get over it." And so that
Uh,
taught me that every time I didn't do well was to just get over it and just keep trying again. And the more you try, the more you try, the more you try. And it's many people say this, including Tony Robbins. If you tried this and it doesn't work, try it a different way. If that doesn't work, try it a different way. But eventually, you're gonna get to a point where it's gonna work for you, right?
right.
So
And a lot of times, Anthony, you don't need to try it a whole different way. You just gotta try it a little bit different. It's like shooting a rifle or shooting a bow and arrow. You pull back on the bow and arrow, you just gotta move it a
yeah,
16th of an inch or an eighth of an inch, and you hit your target. It's
yeah,
just I was off just that little bit. It's kinda like I mentioned about the guy chipping on the nose. It wasn't the first hit, it was at the last one or the
1001.
first one?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's kinda like but, that's why I'm saying I don't try to be hardcore with just move ahead, suck it up, it's like,
yeah,
keep trying, keep going, but
yeah,
that is the answer. That's the point. That
yeah.
is the answer. You're not gonna be coddled, and if you're coddled, you're gonna be soft, and if you're soft, you're not gonna make it at all.
Well, a lot of people, when they come up against a hard or difficult moment, they want to pull back. But that's when you've got to go more into discomfort, right? The more you go into that discomfort, the more you grow as a human being, the more you're expanding yourself and you're getting out of your comfort zone. I like what Rob Dial from the Mindset Mentor on his podcast says that your dreams go to die in your comfort zone. And
For
the,
sure.
the question is, do you want to do the hard stuff now and have an easy life later, or do you want to have an easy life now and have a hard life later? I definitely know what I want to pick. I want to have the hard life now so that I can enjoy myself when I'm in my 70s and 80s and however long I've got. And like for me, after going through 4 redundancies, I decided that that was it. I'm not going to go back into the corporate world. I was going to start my business. And I thought to myself, and I said, well, I don't want to be 90 years old sitting in my deathbed looking back and saying to myself, I didn't back myself and I didn't believe in myself. So
Yeah.
that that's something that I've always done from a young age is to back myself and believe in myself. So yeah,
Very important.
yeah.
Very, very important to do that. My dad many years ago said, "I think we've got life backwards. We should party and explore and travel and do all the things you enjoy till you're about 45, and then go out and work the rest of your life till you die. Because by the time you're 45 or 50, a lot of things I can't water ski anymore. I can't snow ski. Whoa, this is getting hard. I can't or whatever. It's like, I can't do well, let me wait a minute, it's like or in your 80s, you're like, "Oh,
Mm. Now, Jay, when you were in the Marine Corps, so what did it teach you about pushing through when your emotions are telling you that it's time to stop?
that you don't have time to stop." I don't know how to say quit. I don't know how to spell it. You don't you when the Marine Corps breaks you down, everybody is broken down into one thing, and then they build you back up, and part of the stuff they take out of your vocabulary is quit, stop, don't, it's gone. I don't
Yeah.
think about it. That's why I can say, "It's always too soon to quit." It's just that's the only time I use it. It's never in a negative. "I'm gonna quit this." Never. Never, 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 never. So, it's just that you have to have that belief that you're the baddest mother in the valley, as the old saying goes. In Vietnam, we had the 23rd Psalm, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I will fear no evil, because 'cause I'm the meanest mother in the valley." Okay, I know that's not the way it goes, and I know the way it does go, but if you don't have that mindset, you don't have that protective layer on you, and you need that. You need that confidence. You need that, "I got this," whatever size you are. A guy I had in boot camp was 6'6". He had a full ride scholarship to 3 different universities in football, and he was 6'6" and 245, 250, and he barely made it through boot camp because he couldn't hardly do but 3 or 4 pull-ups. I could do 45 pull-ups, but yet if you had the pugil sticks, like a pugil stick is like a rifle with a bayonet with a scabbard on, and you're gonna go out and do battle with him, okay? That doesn't mean you can't win just because he's like Goliath. David beat Goliath,
Mm,
and I had a guy that I had my first time, and I was about 5'9.5", about 152, 155, but I was, like, solid. I was like a rock, and anyhow, this guy comes out, and he comes out, and I just went down low and stuck my bayonet right into his solar plexus and heart and killed him. I didn't do it. I mean, that's it was a training exercise, but that's what I did, and the drill instructor says, "Setchell, you got it,"
yeah,
and
yeah,
he was done. So
yeah.
I just what does it teach you? It just the mindset is just that everyone's a rifleman in the Marine Corps. Everyone. If you're a cook, you're a rifleman. Before you're anything, you're a rifleman. And you've heard the story of the Belleau Wood over in France, where that's where the Marines got their name, the Devil Dogs. The Teufelhunden is what the Germans called it. But they've been fighting the army and they've been in the trenches and they didn't want to get out. And there was a gunnery sergeant by the name of Dan Daly. And Gunnery Sergeant Dan Daly, when they were going to the front, the British troops and some of the French troops were saying, "Hey, where are you going? There's a war up there." And they said, we know that. That's why we're going, you know? And so they got there. Well, they were in the trenches for a day or so, day and a half. And finally, Dan Daly, he stood at a ladder. And this is a story within the Marine Corps. I mean, he's a legend, you know? He just looked back at everybody, took his old single shot rifle with the bayonet on it and says, "Come on, you sons of a bitches. You want to live forever?" And they just scream. And when you scream your guts out, and the Germans saw them coming in mass and screaming like madmen. And that's why they called them the Teufelhunden. They were the devil dogs. They were crazy. And they broke and ran. And henceforth, the Belleau Wood that we knocked them out of, which had been there for months, they renamed that the Wood of the Marine many, many decades ago.
Yeah.
So I think it's just don't accept it. Now, I'm not saying that we don't have some Marines that don't, or later in life, don't hold up to the thing. It's just like you get a shitbird once in a while. Every branch has got them, every country's got them, every race has them, every whatever. But as the biggest rule, it's like, well, the Marines in the 1st Marine Division at the Chosin Frozen, up at the Chosin Reservoir in Korea, they started out at 30-1. 30-1. They got some air support, they got some artillery. That knocked it down to 15 or 16-1. And then that's when they had to fight them.
Mm,
They had to fight them, and I mean, they were piling up frozen bodies for bullet stoppers, It's like, it is what it is. Either either you're gonna fight, like the old Marine Corps motto is "Semper Fi," so instead of "Semper Fidelis," you say "Semper Fi, do or die." And
yeah.
so, either you accomplish the task. I'm not asking you to go out and die today to wash the car and make sure that it's clean and looking good, but do your best, And so I don't I don't it's just they don't exist.
Yeah. Now, last set of questions. Everything comes down to choices. For someone who's listening today who feels stuck or defeated right now, what is the first choice they need to make to shift their life?
I believe they have to search within their head and their heart to really decide, is this what they really, really, really want to do? Is this the direction they really, really want to go? And if it is, get off your fanny and make it happen. If it takes a little research, it takes a little reading, if it takes a little bit of gathering of facts to make sure you're going in the right direction, but you need to decide, it's like, I just think that's what they need to do.
Mm. And how do we stop our past failures from making our choices for us today?
There's a saying that I use it's attributed to an American writer, Ralph Waldo Emerson. I don't know that he said it, but if you look at it like this, the things that are behind us and those things in front of us are small matters compared to what lies within us. So look at what you've done in the past. Did you not learn? Did you not learn that putting your hand on the in the fire will burn you? Did you not learn that sticking your tongue on the electric fence, cattle fence, is going to shock you? If you didn't learn that, go do it again. You'll learn it. So I think the best thing to do is just reflect, think back. What have I done? What hurt? What didn't feel good? And that can be emotionally or physically that that I need to change for the future so I can move ahead.
Agree with you. To learn from your past failures and the lessons that are teaching you what to do, what not to do next time.
It's and it's like if you can find a couple of people in your life too, Anthony, that can be trusted mentors to tell you the truth. It may be short, it may be hard, it may be cold, it may be dirty, it may be whatever, but they're going to be straight with you. Did you like what I did? No, not particularly. That beats the hell out of somebody saying, yeah, it was okay. It was all right. Well, because that leads you down a different path. You asked me, what did I think of it? Now, what do you know about me and what do you know about my background? What do you know about my experience? And why would I say that? You don't have to ask me, but you know that you can trust that answer. And I gave it to you honestly. I think that's a way to look at it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, thank you, Jay. Now, people been listening to this episode and they would like to connect with you. How can they do so?
Well, I got a website that's out that is going to get a little bit better. I need it because I know it's the face of what I'm doing. So I'm kind of working on that and that's coming together pretty soon. But it's called Never Quit Trying.
Mhm.
And my first name, is my email, Jay at Never Quit Trying, or there's a contact form on the pages of Never Quit Trying. And they can see a little bit about the book on there, and the book's available at Amazon and Barnes and Noble and such like that. I would like to mention that I've felt pretty good about the book so far because like you had mentioned earlier on the intro, is the book, it does talk about some of my medical stuff and what's happened. But more than that, is what does it take to get through? Where do you find that strength? Is it from anger, frustration, irritation, pain, your DNA, the way you were raised, your religion? There's a million things within you. Just the Marine Corps. I mean, dropping out of school. What did you learn that first year? You probably learned more in the first year out of school than you did in the previous 10 years in school.
Yeah,
You know, because it's something you have to do. So I just profess that you can learn from the craziest places.
yeah,
You could keep moving forward. One other thing I wanted to mention, Tony, was earlier something was mentioned, and I made me think of how well the book's been doing on Amazon. But what really got tugged at my heart, and I think that's what it's so important about. It's doing very well with people with physical disabilities and inspiration, and it's doing well in later teens through the mid-30s. I got a post on my website from a lady she said, "Dear Mr. Setchell," she said, "I want you to know that I've got your book from my son who got it from his son or his grandson, and I read it, and I see why they wanted me to read it. And I read it again, and did a lot of highlighting, and I circled and I underlined pages and underlined words and comments. And I've reread them many, many times. And I want you to know that at being 88 and a half, my husband passed away 5 years ago. And I really didn't have any ambition to live to be 90. That's another year and a half. That's a long way away. I just didn't have any ambition. And after having read what you put down, and I've reread it several times, I'm now inspired and I'm planning my 95th birthday. And that blew my mind. Here's a lady that goes from 88 and a half, doesn't care if she lives to be 90, to planning her 95th birthday.
mm,
I think that's a testament to what people can do for other people, not just what I wrote in a book,
yeah,
but it can be a testament of something that you talk about. It just happened to be with something I put. So, don't look at the now, look at the future, look down the road.
mm,
Because down the road, sooner or later, when you get down the road, then it's going to be the now all over
mm,
again.
mm,
So,
100%.
but
Mm.
I want to share that. I think it's good.
Thank you for sharing that, Jay.
Yes, sir.
Well, what we'll do is we'll put those links in the show notes, but also you'll get a dedicated page for this episode, which will have all your details,
Okay.
your bio, your links. It will have the videos. It'll have an article that's written from the transcript as well, and then there'll be a practical guide, which is a 3-page PDF that they can download for free, and it
Oh,
will give them practical steps that they can actually take today to start applying that in their life straight away as well.
awesome.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
the idea of this is that people listen. Often when we listen to podcasts, we don't all take everything in. So to be able to read it and then also download that practical guide is kind of like it's like a handbook that you're taking away with you. And whenever you're going through the challenges, you look at it and go, how can I reframe this? How can I reflect on this? And how can I make some practical changes? So we'll have all that in the on the page as well. And on your page, you'll see other information as well, including like
Cool.
your videos and how they're
Great.
tracking and so on. Now, I'm going to ask you quick fire questions, and you can answer these in a single word or a short sentence. And the first question for you is, how do you define success, and has that definition evolved for you over time?
Success means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And success has changed for me from just doing and winning, if you will, to actually seeing the enjoyment on other people's faces and knowing that they've become satisfied. That's success.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's been your greatest inspiration and why?
I say probably my father. I'll go back to my father. He passed away early, but my father was very involved with so many different things and so many different businesses and so much with the farm and he loved the land and he loved the air and he loved the crops. He loved working and helping with others and he was so much a part of the community and people came to him for advice and he was helpful to everybody. He was if I could have ever I've said this in the past. My dad passed away when he was 67 very early from a blood clot in his heart due to some medicine, but if I can aspire to be as much of a respected individual as he is or was, then God's been good to me.
What is something that you believe that others may disagree with?
Whoa, that's a long one. I believe you can do it if you want to do it. And a lot of people don't. I really believe that if you put your mind to it, you can be anything or do anything you want to do. I believe that with all my heart. And there's a lot of people out there that would disagree with that. There's too many adversities in the way. Well, get rid of them. Believe
I
in
ha-
that.
I 150% believe that, because that's always been my belief, is that no matter what, if one human being has done it, I can do it as well.
Or you may be the first person
I
that
might
does
be
it.
the first one to do it as well. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And as you know, what I'm doing with this podcast and this movement is so different to any other podcaster out there. If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
Have more patience. Have more patience. I think just at different times on different subjects and different things, shut my mouth, maybe close my eyes and think a little bit, but have more patience. Take the time. Everything takes time to grow. And sometimes you want it to grow quicker. And that's why I say patience would be the one thing.
Yeah. What is one message that you'd like to share with the world?
Wow. I should have thought about that one before. I think a lot of it gets back to what lies behind us and what lies ahead of us are small matters compared to what lies within us. We've all been through certain things. We all go through a lot. We all have our hard times, our good times, our bad times, our great times. Take that and apply it to your future, but it lies within your heart and your mind. It's always too soon to quit. Never give up. Never quit trying. Never quit reaching out to help others, and you will be a better person for it all the way around.
Mm, I love it. Absolutely. And the very last question for you is, what does it mean to you to be a champion and have a champion mindset?
Anthony, I truly don't look at myself as being a champion. I've won so much stuff. And one time when I was getting an award, he said, "How do you do it? How do you do it?" Well, because I don't care about the other stuff. I care about the people that I'm working for, the people I'm providing a product or service for. So if you're a champion, it's just because you've done what was expected and gone above and beyond, and you've done it for somebody else. Because the world is a lot bigger. Life is so much bigger than we are as individuals. But if I am what you're asking, it surprises me. because I don't believe I'm there yet. I believe there's always work to do, and there's always
100%.
work for me to do.
Yeah. I feel that you are a champion because the things that you've been through, the adversities that you've overcome, the challenges that you've faced, only a champion can do that. And we never get there. We've always got more work to do. The fact that you never quit makes you a champion.
Well, thank you. Thank you. If I look at it from running a race, if I could actually run and I never quit, I might make it as a,
Yeah.
then they
Well,
could,
we often think champion means winning something, right? But a champion actually also means that you're doing something for the betterhood of someone else or other people. But it's also you're following your purpose in life, and as long
right.
as you're living a purposeful life, you are being a champion. So yeah,
Well, that's, yeah, that, I guess that's where I would say is you're championing a cause.
100%. Jay, thank you so much for sharing your heart with us and your story.
You're
What's really
welcome.
stood out to me is that the idea is that our strength it isn't just about us, it's built in our faith, it's about our people, our willingness to take responsibility. One thing I'll take away is that as long as we have a breath, we have a choice. And if you've been watching this or listening to this and you found Jay's story inspiring to you, please share this episode with someone who needs to hear it so that it's too soon to quit. Just keep going. Never quit. And also make sure you subscribe to this podcast as well so that you can get more stories like Jay and be able to listen to those. And you'll find all the links for Jay's work, his book, all on the show notes and on the episode page on the Champion Mindset Collective. Thanks for being part of this movement, and I'll see you next time. And lastly, I just want to say you are loved, you are worthy, champion your life, champion your greatness, and have an amazing day.